I never thought a single summer could unravel everything I knew about love, trust, and desire. My name is Chloe, and just a few weeks ago, I stood on a rugged cliff along Oregon's breathtaking coast, the ocean roaring below me, with my husband Daniel by my side. We'd escaped to a weathered beach house with his closest friends, chasing sun-soaked days and bonfire nights, a perfect retreat from the ordinary. But beneath the laughter and crashing waves, a storm was brewing. One that would pull me into a web of forbidden temptation and raw emotion. As the salty breeze whispered secrets through the night, I found myself teetering on the edge of a choice that could shatter my world forever. What happened next will leave you speechless. Picture this: a horizon so vast, it feels like the edge of a dream, where the sky melts into the ocean in a shimmer of endless blue. That's where I found myself at the start of this summer, standing on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, the world below me roaring with untamed energy. I'm Chloe, 30 years old, with a heart that's always chased the wild and the free. Beside me, as he's been for the past 5 years, is my husband, Daniel. At 32, he's a man carved from the coast itself, rugged, with hazel eyes that hold the depth of the sea, always gazing out as if he's searching for something just beyond the waves. His quiet intensity draws me in, even after all this time, like a tide I can't resist. We weren't alone on this escape. Daniel's closest friends joined us for what was supposed to be a perfect summer retreat along Oregon's golden shoreline. There's Ryan, 31, with a smile that could charm the clouds from the sky, always knowing just what to say to lighten a moment. Then there's Ethan, 29, a man of few words but piercing thoughts, his brooding nature and sharp wit cloaking something deeper, something unspoken. And of course, Marcus, 33, the heartbeat of any gathering, his booming laughter and endless tales filling every silence with life. The 5 of us rented a weathered beach house perched where the cliffs collide with the ocean's fury, a place that felt both ancient and alive, as if it held secrets in its creaking walls. Those first few days were a blur of pure, untainted joy. I'd wake to the salty breeze sneaking through the open windows, teasing the curtains into a lazy dance. The scent of the sea clung to everything, sharp and invigorating, as if it was waking me up from the inside out. We'd spill out onto the beach by mid-morning, the sand warm and yielding beneath my bare feet, grains slipping between my toes as we set up a lopsided volleyball net. The sun blazed overhead, turning our skin golden, sweat beading on our brows as we dove and laughed, no score too serious, no miss too grave. Ryan would cheer every point, even the terrible ones, while Marcus turned every fumble into a story we'd never live down. Ethan, though, he'd just smirk from the sidelines, tossing out a cutting remark that'd make us double over, breathless with laughter. By evening, we'd gather around a bonfire, the crackle of burning driftwood mixing with the rhythmic crash of waves against the shore. The air was thick with the smoky aroma of fresh fish sizzling on the grill, the kind we'd caught ourselves that morning, Daniel teaching me how to cast a line with a patience I've always adored. We'd sit close, the 5 of us, shoulders brushing, passing a bottle of something sharp and warm between us, the kind of drink that burns just right on the way down. The firelight painted our faces in flickering shadows, casting a warm glow over our little circle, but even in those perfect moments, I couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered just out of sight. A whisper of unease I couldn't quite name. By the 4th day, the rhythm of our coastal escape had settled into something almost sacred. I woke to the soft gray light of dawn creeping through the window, the air cool and briny. Daniel was already up, as he often is, sitting out on the deck of the beach house with a steaming mug of coffee in his hands. I joined him, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders, the wooden boards creaking under my bare feet as I settled into the chair beside him. The ocean stretched out before us, a restless expanse of deep blue, and for a while we just sat in companionable silence, sipping our drinks, letting the world wake up around us. Then Daniel started talking, his voice low and warm, about fishing trips with his dad when he was a kid. I could hear the excitement in his tone, a rare animation lighting up his usually guarded demeanor. He described the way the boat would rock beneath them, the thrill of reeling in something big, the quiet pride in his father's nod of approval. I watched his face as he spoke, the way his hazel eyes seemed to gleam with the memory, and I felt a surge of affection for this man who so rarely lets his walls down. The others were still asleep, their snores a faint hum from inside the house, so we lingered there, wrapped in the stillness of the morning, until the sun climbed higher and the day called us to action. By late morning, we were all down at the shore, the group finally stirring with lazy energy. We decided on a swim, and I'll never forget the jolt of that first step into the ocean. The water was icy, a sharp slap against my skin that stole my breath for a moment before I plunged in deeper, letting it envelop me. Ryan was right behind me, his laughter ringing out as he splashed me with a wave, the cold droplets stinging my face. I retaliated, sending a spray back at him, and soon we were all caught up in the chaos of it, shouting and diving through the waves. Marcus, always the instigator, grabbed me around the waist and tried to pull me under, his grip playful but strong. I squirmed free, gasping and laughing so hard my sides ached, the sound of our joy echoing over the water. But as I surfaced, shaking the wet hair from my eyes, I caught Ethan watching from a few feet away. His gaze was steady, almost too intense, lingering on me as the water streamed down my skin. There was something in his expression I couldn't read, a quiet weight that made my pulse quicken for reasons I didn't want to dwell on. I turned away, focusing on the horizon instead, but the moment stuck with me, a tiny splinter of discomfort in an otherwise perfect day. We eventually dragged ourselves back to the beach, sprawling out on mismatched towels under the midday. As the day slipped away, I found myself standing alone by the old fishing shack down the beach, the weathered wood creaking softly in the evening breeze. A strange unease settled over me, prickling at the back of my neck like a whisper I couldn't ignore. The air grew cooler, biting at my skin as the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of bruised purple and fading gold. The sound of the waves roared louder in my ears, a relentless rhythm that seemed to drown out my own thoughts, pulling me into its chaotic pulse. I shifted nervously on the damp sand, the grains clinging to my bare feet, cold and gritty as I glanced around, wondering where Daniel had wandered off to. He'd said something about checking the tide pools further down the shore, but that felt like ages ago, and the silence of his absence gnawed at me. Then, out of nowhere, a figure emerged from behind the shack. My breath hitched as I recognized Ryan, his silhouette materializing like a ghost in the twilight, tall and shadowed against the dimming light. He approached with a slow, deliberate stride, each step measured, as if he had all the time in the world. The last glimmers of daylight caught in his dark hair, framing his face in a way that made my chest tighten. And that smile, oh, that smile on his lips, confident, almost predatory, sent a shiver racing down my spine that had nothing to do with the cool ocean air. I stood rooted to the spot, unable to move, as he closed the distance between us. Without a word, he reached out, his fingers brushing through a strand of my hair, warm against my chilled skin. The touch was electric, a jolt that surged through me, setting every nerve on edge. My breath caught in my throat, my mind a tangled mess of whether to pull away or lean closer, caught in the pull of something I couldn't name. Before I could make sense of it, more shadows moved in the fading light. Ethan and Marcus stepped out from the darkness near the shack, their presence sudden and overwhelming as they approached. My heart pounded harder, a wild drumbeat in my chest as they drew near. The heat radiating from them contrasted sharply with the crisp ocean breeze, a warmth that seemed to wrap around me, pulling me in. The scent of salt mingled with something earthier, the raw edge of sweat and skin, filling the air as they stood close. Too close. The soft lapping of waves at my feet blended with the sensation of their nearness, their touches light but deliberate, grazing my arms, my shoulders, in a way that made my skin burn with a forbidden heat. It was surreal, like I was caught in a dream I couldn't wake from, every sense heightened to a breaking point. My pulse raced, a frantic rhythm I couldn't control, as I realized what was unfolding here on this secluded stretch of sand. And in that raw, unguarded moment, I admitted something to myself I never thought I would. I wasn't resisting. I was drawn to it, pulled into the current of this dangerous thrill like a tide I couldn't fight. The forbidden nature of it, the way it danced on the edge of everything I knew to be right, coursed through me like wildfire, igniting parts of me I'd kept buried. I let myself get lost in the rush, in the unspoken promises carried in their touches, in the way the world seemed to shrink to just this moment, just us under the cover of twilight. It was a betrayal, a sharp, cutting truth that sliced through me even as I surrendered to the heat of it. I liked it, more than I should have, more than I could ever justify. The guilt was there, lurking at the edges of my mind, but it was drowned out by the intensity of what I felt, by the way my body responded to every fleeting brush, every lingering gaze, as if I'd been starving for something I didn't even know I needed. My thoughts were a storm, crashing and chaotic, when a sudden instinct made me glance over my shoulder. That's when I saw him, Daniel, standing a short distance away on the beach, half shrouded in the gathering darkness, his figure a stark outline against the deepening twilight. My heart stopped, a cold wave of dread crashing over me as I locked eyes with Daniel. There he stood, motionless, a silhouette carved against the darkening sky where the last traces of violet bled into inky black. The moonlight spilled over him, casting a pale, ghostly sheen across his rugged frame, catching the sharp angles of his jaw and glinting off those hazel eyes, calm, unreadable, piercing through me like a blade. His hands were tucked casually into the pockets of his worn jacket, as if he'd been standing there for ages, just watching, waiting. The wind tugged at his dark hair, strands whipping across his forehead, but he didn't move, didn't flinch. He was a statue, a sentinel on the shore, and the weight of his gaze pinned me to the spot, heavier than the ocean itself. My stomach churned, a sickening mix of shame and confusion twisting inside me. I braced myself, expecting the storm, his voice to thunder over the waves, his boots to pound the sand as he stormed over, his anger to erupt in a fury I'd never seen. I deserved it. I knew I did. My breath hitched, caught in my throat, as I waited for the explosion that would shatter this fragile, forbidden moment. But it didn't come. Instead, his voice sliced through the rhythmic crash of the waves, low and steady, almost too calm for the chaos raging in my chest. "Keep going," he said, the words hanging in the salty air like a command, a challenge, a riddle I couldn't solve. I froze, my mind reeling, scrambling to make sense of what I'd just heard. Keep going? What did that even mean? My pulse thundered in my ears louder than the tide as I stared at him, searching his face for some hint, some crack in that impenetrable mask. But there was nothing, just those eyes, steady and deep, holding mine with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Inside, I was tearing apart. Part of me screamed to stop, to break free from this web I'd woven, to run to him and fall to my knees, begging for forgiveness, for a way back to the life we'd built. My chest ached with the weight of my guilt, the betrayal I'd let myself sink into, and I could almost feel the words spilling out. How sorry I was. How I didn't mean for it to go this far. But another part of me, raw and reckless, was electrified by his words, by the unspoken invitation laced in that steady tone. It was as if he'd thrown open a door I didn't even know existed, daring me to step through, to see how far I'd go. My body trembled, caught between the pull of remorse and the dangerous thrill of his permission, a current I couldn't escape. I didn't know what to do, didn't know how to move forward or pull back, but I felt the shift in the air, a charged tension that seemed to hum through the night. Ryan, Ethan, and Marcus hesitated too, their movements stalling for a heartbeat as they glanced toward Daniel, their eyes flickering with uncertainty, as if seeking some sign, some confirmation that they'd heard him right. I could feel their uncertainty mirroring my own. The way their hands hovered, no longer sure. The warmth of their nearness suddenly tinged with doubt. But then, slowly, almost cautiously, their touches returned. Tentative at first, like testing the waters after a storm, fingers brushing against my skin with a careful restraint. My breath hitched again, sharper this time, as I felt the shift, the way their hesitation melted into something bolder, more deliberate, each graze igniting a fire I couldn't douse. The cool sand shifted beneath me, gritty and damp against my bare legs, a stark contrast to the heat of their hands, the way they seemed to map every inch of me with a quiet intensity. It was overwhelming, a dizzying blend of sensations that pulled me under, the roughness of the earth beneath me, the warmth spreading through my veins, and above all, the weight of Daniel's gaze, anchoring me to this moment, unyielding and inescapable. As the charged moment on the beach lingered, a heavy silence settled over us, thick and suffocating, like the air before a storm. I stood there, my sundress wrinkled and clinging to my skin, my hair a wild mess from the ocean wind and the lingering echoes of their touch. My chest heaved, each breath shallow and uneven, as I felt the weight of what had just unfolded pressing down on me. Ryan, Ethan, and Marcus slowly stepped back, their faces a mix of something raw, satisfaction, maybe, but also a flicker of uncertainty, as if they were questioning the boundary we'd just crossed. I felt exposed, not just in the physical sense, but down to my very core, like every hidden thought and desire had been laid bare under the pale moonlight. I couldn't bring myself to look at them for long. My gaze darted to the sand, to the way it clung to my bare feet, cold and gritty, grounding me in a moment that felt anything but real. My hands trembled at my sides, fingers twitching with the urge to cover myself, to hide from the intensity of it all. That's when I heard the soft crunch of boots on sand, deliberate and slow, drawing closer. My heart lurched into my throat as I lifted my eyes and saw Daniel approaching. His silhouette was still sharp against the dark horizon, but now, up close, I could see the set of his jaw, the way his hazel eyes held something I couldn't decipher. I braced myself, every muscle in my body tensing, waiting for the words I was sure would cut through me, anger, disappointment, something to shatter the fragile silence. But instead, he reached out, his hand finding mine with a gentleness that stole the air from my lungs. His touch was warm, familiar, a tether in the chaos, and yet it sent a shiver racing through me, my fingers trembling against his calloused palm. I searched his face, desperate for a clue, for anything to tell me what he was thinking. Those eyes, deep and unreadable, held mine for a moment that stretched into eternity. My heart pounded so hard I was sure he could hear it, each beat a frantic plea for understanding. But he didn't speak, not yet. Instead, he gave my hand a gentle tug, a silent signal to follow, and we started walking back toward the beach house. The others trailed behind us, their footsteps a faint echo on the sand, but I barely noticed them. My world had narrowed to the feel of Daniel's hand in mine, the way his grip was steady even as my own shook, and the overwhelming quiet between us. Every sound seemed amplified in that silence. The distant crash of waves against the shore, the soft rustle of my sweater as it brushed against my skin, the even rhythm of Daniel's breathing beside me. It was as if the night itself was holding its breath, waiting for whatever came next. The beach house loomed ahead, its weathered frame a dark shape against the starry sky, the faint glow of a porch light spilling out like a beacon. We climbed the creaking steps, the salt-streaked wood rough underfoot, and stepped inside. The air was cooler here, carrying the faint scent of driftwood and the lingering warmth of the day. Ryan, Ethan, and Marcus muttered something about needing rest, their voices low as they dispersed down the hallway to their rooms, leaving us alone. The sudden absence of their presence felt like a weight lifting, but it only sharpened the tension coiling tighter in my chest. Daniel didn't let go of my hand, not even as he led me through the dimly lit house, past the cluttered living room with its mismatched furniture, and into our bedroom at the end of the hall. The door clicked shut behind us with a finality that made my pulse spike, the sound echoing in the quiet space. The room was bathed in shadows, the single lamp on the nightstand casting long, flickering shapes across the walls. The bed, with its rumpled quilt and scattered pillows, seemed to loom larger than life as Daniel guided me toward it. He sat on the edge, the mattress dipping slightly under his weight, and pulled me down beside him. I perched there, my legs pressed together, my hands fidgeting in my lap. The next morning, I woke to the sharp cry of seagulls piercing the quiet, their calls weaving through the open window like a restless melody. A faint scent of coffee drifted through the beach house, warm and grounding, pulling me from the haze of sleep. My eyes fluttered open, the soft gray light of dawn spilling across the room, illuminating the familiar shapes of our cluttered space. I lay there for a moment, the events of last night replaying in my mind like a fever dream, each memory tinged with a heat that made my chest tighten. The weight of it all pressed against me, a mix of guilt and something else, something wild and unnameable that still lingered in my veins. I rolled over, finding Daniel already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching me with those hazel eyes that seemed to see straight through to my core. There was no judgment there, no storm waiting to break, just a quiet intensity that made my breath catch. I wanted to speak, to spill out every tangled thought in my head, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just stared back, caught in the unspoken current between us, until he reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face with a tenderness that felt almost too heavy to bear. We didn't linger long in that charged silence. The day was waiting, and with it, the rest of the group. I dragged myself out of bed, pulling on a loose sweater and jeans, the fabric rough against my skin as if every sensation was heightened after last night. Down in the kitchen, the mundane normalcy of breakfast unfolded like a scene from another life. Marcus was at the stove, flipping pancakes with a flourish, cracking jokes about seagull pirates stealing our food, his booming voice filling the room as if nothing had changed. Ethan sat at the table, nursing a mug of black coffee, a slight smirk playing on his lips as he caught my eye for a fleeting second, before looking away, the gesture loaded with something I couldn't quite read. Ryan, though, wouldn't meet my gaze at all, focusing instead on buttering his toast with a precision that felt forced, his shoulders tense under his faded t-shirt. The air hummed with an unspoken tension, a silent undercurrent beneath the clatter of plates and the murmur of small talk, as if we were all tiptoeing around the jagged edges of what had happened under the moonlight. Daniel, though, was the same as ever, steady as the tide. He slid into the chair beside me, passing the butter with a small, knowing smile that sent a shiver racing down my spine, a silent acknowledgement of the secret we now shared. I took the butter dish, my fingers brushing his for just a moment, and felt a jolt, a spark that reminded me of the fire we'd danced with last night. My heart thudded unevenly as I spread the butter on my toast, the simple act feeling like a mask for the chaos swirling inside me. I was standing on the edge of something vast and uncharted, a precipice I hadn't seen coming. My marriage, the life I thought I knew so well, was no longer the solid ground I'd relied on. It wasn't broken, not in the way I'd feared it might be, but it was different now, shifted, reshaped by a single night into something I didn't fully understand yet. And the strangest part? I wasn't afraid of that difference. I was drawn to it, pulled by a curiosity that felt as dangerous as it was thrilling. Breakfast passed in a blur, the group dispersing to their own corners of the house or down to the shore, leaving a quiet that felt heavier than it should have. Later that day, I found myself alone with Daniel on the deck, the two of us settled into weathered Adirondack chairs, watching the waves roll in with a relentless rhythm. The ocean stretched out before us, a restless expanse of deep blue and frothy white, mirroring the turmoil I felt inside. The salty breeze tugged at my hair, carrying the sharp tang of the sea, and I pulled my sweater tighter around me, seeking warmth against the cool afternoon air. Daniel didn't say much, just rested his hand on my knee, the weight of his touch grounding me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.